You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, what's good, everybody? It's time for the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga flying solo, just like Johnny Lazarus last night at the Stanley Cup Final. John Tortorella swatting everybody, including him, and everybody swatted me on this show, so I'm flying solo for this Friday edition. Looking forward to it. This is a presentation of Bet365. Hockey fans, check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. It must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. There's definitely a buzz in the air, I would say, here in Toronto. The World Cup center stage, Canada playing later on today. People are fired up, and I'm still fired up about the Stanley Cup Final. I think it's been epic thus far. A lot of offense, and I've been consistent in saying throughout this Cup Final that I really expected a defensive-minded series. You got a bit more of that last night, specifically from Carolina. But just the wild swings and momentums that we've seen thus far in this series have been crazy. And good on Carolina, now 1 win away from hoisting Lord Stanley. Something still tells me we're getting back to a Game 7 next Wednesday night in Raleigh. And certainly John Tortorella feels that way. If you guys caught the post-game remarks from Torts last night, said he's leaving his clothes in Carolina. That'd be a shitty job for somebody to have to pick those up if Carolina goes on to win the Cup coming up on Sunday. Nikolai Ehlers, fantastic outing for him. I know everybody in this market wants to talk about Mitch Marner changing locales, but that's exactly what Nikolai Ehlers did, going from Winnipeg to Carolina. And suddenly it could be the move that puts the Canes over the top. I think for the most part, he's been tremendous, especially in the second half here of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the way that game starts, you sort of had the feeling Ehlers was going to do something. He bookended that game with 2 puck over glass penalties, and it started earlier on, and Vegas capitalizes. They score the first goal of the game, but anybody who's been watching this series knew right away Vegas scores first, they're probably not winning this hockey game, and that's exactly what happened. Nikolai Ehlers goes on to grab 3 apples and 2 brutal penalties at that, but didn't bite him in the ass, and I think was a big part of this victory for Carolina. The other thing that stood out for me is the star players making big plays at big moments. I know Sebastian Aho has been a GOAT throughout this run for Carolina, hasn't been the Aho we've seen in the past, but he scores a big-time goal in the third period. And to that point, Andrei Svechnikov, by far, I think his best outing in weeks, if not months. He scores 2 goals in the game. And then, yes, of course, Jordan Staal scores yet again. And it's been pretty damn cool to see the odds market when it comes to the Conn Smythe Trophy fluctuate from game to game, week to week at that. And right now, I believe Staal is the front runner, the betting favorite to win the Conn Smythe Trophy. And I've got no qualms with this. I know a lot of people on social media, usually people who have money on other players, by the way, pissed off with this notion that Jordan Staal's had a handful of strong outings, specifically here in the Stanley Cup Final, and should suddenly walk away with this award. I'm good with it, man. He has played his best hockey at the most important time of the year. He's the captain of the Carolina Hurricanes. The numbers speak for themselves. He has 6 goals in this series. He's been everywhere. And oh, yeah, he's 37. It really is crazy to see what Jordan Staal has done and the timeliness. And I think it brings new perspective, too, when you think about certain players, different guys like this, like Jordan Staal specifically. He's waited 17 years to get back to the Stanley Cup Final. You know, there's a laundry list of players who get there early on in their career. They win, and they think it's easy. They think it's going to happen every season. And I think Jordan Staal down the road, maybe when he writes a book with his brothers, will be like, no, I thought this is going to be a normality in my career. And yes, 17 years later, Jordan Staal on the brink of winning another Stanley Cup here in his NHL career, and he's been outstanding for this Carolina team. Goaltending, as per usual, big story. It seems like ever since Brandon Bussey came in, I understand Vegas ended up winning that game back at Game 3 on Saturday night, but Bussey's given this team a bolt, and I don't know what the hell's going on with Frederik Andersen, but that's probably the last we've seen of Andersen. Didn't even back up again last night, and it's not the quantity of shots. Like, if you're a Carolina goalie, you're not going to see that much rubber, but Brandon Bussey last night, I thought, made some timely saves, makes 22 in total. I love the shots of his family in the crowd. Again, it really brings perspective when you sort of humanize the situation. You look back at where Bussey was at in his career, like even a year ago, playing in the American Hockey League, now to starring in a Stanley Cup Final, taking over in relief for Frederik Andersen, who has been tremendous, and suddenly 1 win away from hoisting Lord Stanley. It's really amazing how things work out sometimes. And getting to the greater point about goaltending, if you guys missed the clip, Johnny Lazarus of Morning Cup of Hockey, I think asked a really, really fair question pertaining to the third period and to Torts specifically, saying, hey, did you ever have the idea or something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, of putting Aiden Hill in for the third period, which I thought was a valid question. In fact, moving forward in this series, I think Vegas should look very, very closely at potentially making a goaltending change. Carolina is a perfect example of making a change. We've seen Frederik Andersen for months, weeks. Brandon Bussey comes in and he's given them a jolt. And the reason why I bring that up, and I'm the person with a ticket for Carter Hart to win the Conn Smythe that I've just thrown in the garbage because it's not fucking happening. But I think it could give Vegas the necessary jolt. And I think it was the right question. When you look at the numbers, they're ugly. Carter Hart's allowed 4 goals in every game of the series. And I think when you get goaltending like that, and you can't place all the blame on goaltending. I understand it's so easy to blame goalies in this day and age specifically. But I think it could just be the move that puts Vegas over the top. And it was such a Tortorella answer. But the way he answered that question made me think he thinks Johnny's onto something and wanted to deflect, protect his guy. And he completely comprehends he's one loss away from this incredible run that he's been on going Kerplatt and him not ultimately ending up with a Stanley Cup. Vegas's offense has to wake up too. I know Jack Eichel was better last night. I didn't think it was Marner's best game. I still think he was effective, but numbers are numbers. Howden, Dorofeev, and Marner have now combined for 36 of Vegas' 76 goals here in the postseason. And the cherry on top, I think, from the Carolina perspective is Vegas losing William Karlsson. We saw the Marner-Eichel Stone line play a lot of shifts together last night. Tortorella alluded to it in his post-game remarks, too, how big William Karlsson has been in this run. Health has been a concern for Karlsson all season long, but it really felt like he was starting to play his game again, goes down. And the way Tortorella talked last night, I would be shocked if we saw William Karlsson again. And maybe that's the pendulum swing that Carolina needs to win a Stanley Cup here. We'll see what happens coming up on Sunday, but it's been an awesome series. Watching that game last night, I'm like, can we have 7 more of these, please? But not really, because I'm a Leafs fan, and I really want this offseason to get underway. Shout out to Carolina's power play, too. It's been plaguing that franchise for the last 15 years, and honestly, a big reason why they haven't been able to push through in the Stanley Cup playoffs. 2 for 5 last night. They've clearly unlocked something, and their PK, as we know by now, has been a massive story. So looking forward to Sunday night, Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. From there, the Hart Trophy debate, which I'll be quite honest, I thought would create bigger conversation on social media. I think people are just so fatigued with the Connor McDavid conversation, even in Edmonton, where they're like, you know what, I'm going to save my breath. I'm going to save my tweets and whatever. And maybe maybe it's the respect for Nikita Kucherov too, because I really feel like he had an outstanding season, but people will have a pretty decent pushback that they have the Jack Adams Trophy winner in John Cooper. They have the Vezina winner in Andrei Vasilevsky. And they have Nikita Kucherov now, who wins the Hart Trophy. But you can't forget, this is a regular season award. So I know people like to pin and place and laugh at the fact that Tampa went out for a 4th consecutive season in the first round. But Kucherov was out of this world. They could have easily given that award to McDavid or McKinnon. But I think if there were a year for Kucherov to win his 2nd Hart Trophy, it was certainly this one, just the way he played, the importance, the injuries. I think Tampa had 11 different defensemen play for them, various injuries to Braden Point. Victor Hedman missed a good chunk of the season. Kucherov needed to elevate to get that team in a prime position to, make the playoffs and maybe win a Stanley Cup. And I really felt like he put the team on his back and said, hey, come with me. 76 games, 44 goals, 130 points. And that's taking nothing away again from Connor McDavid, Alex Ovechkin. There were a lot of amazing performances throughout the year. Not Ovechkin, excuse me. Ovechkin was part of the active player list for winning. Just 4th active player, by the way, for Kucherov to win multiple times. Crosby, McDavid, and Ovechkin. It was McDavid and McKinnon at the end that were there with Nikita Kucherov, who walks away with the Hart Trophy. As we get closer and closer to deciding a Cup champion, it's either going to be on Sunday or it's going to be on Wednesday for a potential Game 7. And like many of you here in the chat, I'm looking forward to the offseason, just more so from the Leafs perspective. The coaching search, which we'll get to a bit later on. But the draft countdown, folks, is on. We are 2 weeks away from the NHL draft, and we'll have this coming up as a bit of a promo, a feature we're going to be doing a live stream here over at the Nation Network, over here at the Leafs Nation. I believe Jay Rosehill is going to come into town. We're going to do a live stream where we think the Maple Leafs are going to select Gavin McKenna first overall. Speaking of which, two guys who know prospects pretty damn well coming up on today's show. I caught up with John Gruden yesterday ahead of Game 1 of the Calder Cup Final. I'm going to play that interview in 2 minutes here. And then Jay McKee, the new head coach of the Hamilton Hammers, one of the best team names in hockey, formerly with Brantford of the OHL this past season. In fact, the last 3 seasons. And you can draw parallels, too, because I think before Jay McKee, John Gruden was with Brantford. I don't know if that timeline matches up, but definitely a disciple of that Brantford program is John Gruden. And so Jay McKee is coming up live in about 20, a taped interview here with John Gruden coming up in mere moments. He was outstanding, by the way, at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to check out theleafsnation.com. By the way, our Super Chat charity partner is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. So while everybody's glossing over the Stanley Cup Final getting set for the Grey Cup, the World Cup here in Canada and in Toronto specifically, a lot of people in Toronto in this market looking forward to the Calder Cup Final, and the Toronto Marlies taking on the Chicago Wolves, starting with Game 1 tonight. I had a chance to catch up with Toronto Marlies head coach John Gruden yesterday. Have a listen and watch. John, you're 4 wins away from a Calder Cup here. What's been the biggest reason this group has been able to sustain success through such a long playoff run here?
Well, I just think it's the group we have. Again, coaches can do mean such a much as far as giving them a game plan, but the way they've been able to execute it, and not only the way they execute it when playoffs is pretty stressful, but I think our group for when their backs are against the wall, we just get the best out of them. They don't get too high, don't get too low. They understand what's at stake, and they just created this bond amongst each other. And some of us have been together for a few years, some have not, some have just joined, but the blend of it, and with the youth, with the energy of the youth and the experience of the older guys, it's really been a treat. It's been pretty great to watch us grow as a group. But that's definitely probably the biggest attribute. I'll give the credit to the players for sure.
What's the experience been like? Like, I was at Game 3 against Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and that place was buzzing, man. Like, the crowd support's been great. I'll be honest, it's been awesome to see playoff hockey in the month of June in Toronto as well.
Yeah, they've been there all, those are loyal fans that have been with us that I see, for my all 3 years, but it's definitely, the fans have definitely came in bunches, to watch, us playing, at this time of the year. It's pretty exciting, and they've been great. They've actually given us a lot of energy, a lot of juice. Even when we were down a goal or so, but they definitely been. The more you win, the more they come, and that's definitely been the case. And we're going to need them going into this final series.
It's been great to see for sure in this market. Every championship team, as you know, seems to develop an identity. Your team certainly has one. How would you describe the identity of this Marlies team when you did feel it really taking shape as well?
Yeah, and again, the identity takes a while to establish, and we found it for sure. It's just the resiliency of our group. Like I talked about earlier, though, the way we start games now. We're starting with the right mindset. We're not waiting to see what's going to happen. We're kind of going to make it happen. And as this playoffs has gone on, our identity keeps getting stronger and stronger. But that's definitely it. We got guys willing to play all the same way, but some guys have higher skill set than others, but we want to make sure we're predictable in certain areas of the ice to where, when they do get that puck in open ice, that's where their skill will take over, but they're not deviating from what the team is trying to do. And I think we've done a good job establishing that identity, and they got to continue to do it to, if we want to win here.
What's the book on this Chicago Wolves squad?
For me, little systematic, like Laval, very, very fast. They want to play with pace. They want the puck going north. Some skilled, like as far as their roster is concerned, a little Wilkes-Barre, little Laval as far as you got some heavier lines at the bottom that will do the grinding work, and you have a couple high end skilled guys with Nick Suzuki and Robida. Unger Storm, they can get up and down the ice, and if you make mistakes against them, like the Wilkes-Barre opponent we had, they got a good transition team, and they have the ability to put the puck in the back of the net along with a really good power play. So we're going to have to be cognizant of those things and make sure that if they're going to get something, that we're going to make them earn it and go 200 feet and try to stay disciplined and stay out of the box.
Fair to say that they play a lot like the Hurricanes?
Yeah, I would say so. They're very man up in all zones. They're going hard man on man. And they're very the way they go about their business. Their systems are high pressure, high man on man, and we're going to have to be prepared for that.
John, what's it like been coaching Easton Cowan? I love this kid's character following since he's been drafted, even dating back to his days with the London Knights, even the way he stepped up after that one game. Unfortunate turnover, but just bounces back, scores in back-to-back games. You guys win in 6 games last series. What's it been like to coach Easton Cowan here?
He's been great. Fortunately, I was able to spend some time with him in the last 2 prospects tournaments, the one in Traverse City, my first year, and then last few years in Montreal. So I've had some experience with them, which is nice. But, they always say you don't know what you have with somebody until something bad happens. And, under the circumstances, something bad did happen. And the way he owned up to it and responded to it just says enough about his character and what he is as a player. Not only, the skill set is obviously there, but to own that at that age is quite remarkable. He's a winner. And again, we're going to need him moving forward, but for his bounce back like that in game 5 and 6 is quite remarkable. It's one thing to say it, but to act upon it is great to see. And I'm proud of him, and he's a great player.
You've been tracking his development, and even watching the game I did in person last week, it feels night and day from the guy that I saw maybe in his rookie time and obviously coming over earlier in the year. But what kind of strides do you think he's made in his game watching him from day one to now?
Well, I think he's understanding that, he's going to have to play in all zones. He's going to have to get stronger. Which you knew he would after being 18 years old. He's got that frame. You can see he's starting to fill out, and he's putting in the time and work to work on his body. But he's definitely matured, in all aspects. Whether it's doing the necessary things as off ice training and it's just the way he handles himself. He just has that moxie, that confidence that you need in a hockey player. I don't care. Everyone has different personalities, but that's real for him. He enjoys being around his teammates, from jumping around the much as he has here. It's going from London back to from us to the league. I mean, that's a lot on a young man. The World Juniors last year, he's been around a lot of locker rooms, but what he has is genuine, and he's going to be a really good player for a long time in this league.
He's got that swagger, and so does Jacob Cullen, who you guys have missed. What's the latest on him? Will we see him in this series?
I believe we will. I think he's coming around. We're going to make sure first and foremost that he's healthy. But I think that we will definitely be seeing him hopefully sooner than later, but we'll make sure the time is right. And yeah, it'd be nice to get his energy in in the lineup as well. We know what he brings to the table. He's got lots of pace, lots of energy, and again, another proven winner, one at the college level, and definitely we'll definitely accept when he comes back. We'll have open arms there for him, ready to go.
John, you must feel pretty damn good when you wake up on a daily basis when you consider who you have in between the pipes, Dennis Hildeby and, of course, Artur Akhtiamov. What have you made of his growth and development, especially Akhtiamov through this playoff run? He's been outstanding.
Yeah, he really has. I mean, he's, it's one of those things you couldn't go wrong on who you put in the net, but sometimes you got to let them kind of decide, and, then you kind of got to get out of the way a little bit. And Arthur is, with his quiet confidence, both of them quiet confidence. Again, I think we'd be in the same position if Dennis was there. It's just, Arthur is taking the net, and he's done a really good job with it. And, but it's just quiet confidence. It's just, again, everyone has different swag, different confidence and they act differently. He's just a quiet confidence, but he's got that smile on his face. Every day when he comes to the rink, he works extremely hard, and he's very athletic. I mean, he has the ability to make those game-changing saves that you're going to need at moments within the game that give our guys confidence. for them to understand, hey, let's get going here. Artie's, look at how he's playing, and he's given our group a lot of confidence for sure.
You can attest that even when one guy's playing and one guy's not, the importance of the battery mate, right? Like you look back the days of Allmark and Swayman in Boston. How's Hildeby been coping with the fact that obviously this guy wants to play? He's obviously been a really good teammate through this.
Yeah, I agree. And I had both of those guys in my last year in Boston with Swayman and Allmark. So I saw it firsthand how much one pulled for the other when the one was playing. So that's what good teammates are supposed to do, and that's what our guys have done. But they push you. It's a good thing to compete in a positive way amongst teammates because it drives each other, and I think that's what makes you go. And we definitely have that here with the Marlies.
And that's the one misconception, I think, outside this market, that there's some really damn good prospects coming up. Among them, Ben Danford, who's been with you guys for now, I believe, 11 games, coming over for the Ontario Hockey League. How impressed have you been with his transition? Like, that's tough to go into the Calder Cup playoffs and play the way he has so far.
Yeah, and that was like a bittersweet for me, too, because I'm still very connected to that organization in Hamilton. And, when I got some coach there that I know are friends of mine, and it was tough to watch, but on the second hand and the consolation, I knew it was going to benefit us, getting a young player like that has that potential to even add more energy into our group, and he continues to get better every game with confidence. And we wouldn't be here, I don't think, in this position without him. And he continues to grow, but he's definitely going to be a player you're going to see in the Leafs uniform for many years. And he doesn't have any identity issues. I think he knows exactly who he is. He moves pucks quick. He can close quick. He can make that first pass, and he continues to grow into his body and get stronger too. So definitely a lot of positives moving forward.
To me, it's the skating. Like, what has stood out for you in sort of his development the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think it's the skating, and I think it's his body getting stronger, where he gets to be a stronger skater. Just with time. But you can see it. He's on his edges. He can cover a lot of ice. So if he does make a mistake, it doesn't seem like he puts himself in terrible enough positions where he can't recover. There's a lot to like there as a defenseman, how he plays the game, and he's been a great addition to our group for sure.
So as you know, the Leafs are looking for a head coach. Have you spoken with the organization about the vacancy, and what's your general philosophy on coaching?
Well, again, for me, I have not spoken to them. I think they've done a really good job. I've talked to Ryan Hardy, obviously, who's our general manager, and me and him stay on as far as what our day-to-day is. But I've not talked to management. They kind of seem to want to leave us alone and focus in on the task at hand, which we appreciate. And I'm sure, they got a lot going on. But as far as me as a head coach, I coach because I love being a coach. I love to teach. I left the Boston Bruins to make sure I get more coaching experience as a head coach, because I only had it for 3 years in the OHL. And I don't second guess my decision at all, but I coach because I love coaching and I want to coach at the best league. Of course, I want to be a coach in the National Hockey League. That's why I did it. My philosophy is, again, team first. No one's going to do anything going alone by themselves. You're going to need a bunch of people that are on the same page. If you do it together, a lot more gets accomplished. And it's just being able to connect with your players. This is the philosophy. Everyone's a little bit different. But I think by me being at the National Development Program, coaching with kids, me actually even coaching my son when he was 12, 13, made me understand a little bit how coaching has changed, how you got to be more of a teacher, more of a mentor, like a lot of different, things that you have to be in order to be a head coach. But I put myself in all those positions. I've also learned from extremely good coaches in Jim Montgomery and Barry Trotz on preparation and how they go about their business. Both are different, but both are unique and outstanding in their own rights. And then for me, it's just keeping everyone tight in the locker room, teaching them, giving them a structure, holding them accountable to certain things that are to the standard of how we want to play. And no one is above that. And then the rest will take over, the skill set and all that stuff. But that to me has been my major as a head coach on how I go about our business. And I also wouldn't be able to do it without good assistance And I have that here at Mark Giordano and Michael Dick. So, again, you can't do it by yourself.
Do you feel like you're ready to take that next step?
100%. 100% I do. I've been around this game a long time. I've gotten my time now as a head coach. I know it's different leagues, but still the game is played the same way. It's just, you're going to have to deal with, some so obviously some higher end players, but I also had that ability to deal with guys like that when I ran the power play in New York and Boston.
What's it been like having Mark Giordano around you? Has he been a natural at this thing?
100%, because not only is he's really dove into being a coach and he's working extremely hard at it. He also is just freshly out of being a player. And I lean on him a lot because I always ask him, how does that, if you're in that locker room, he's not too far removed, where would you go? Yes. And he'll sometimes say, no, maybe this, you know what I mean? So I really can rely on him. And he's been great as far as transitioning from it. Sometimes it's not easy, but he's doing everything necessary to better himself as a coach. And I think he's come along great. I mean, again, we wouldn't be here without him.
Lastly, not sure if you're big on social media, but Bruce Boudreau actually co-hosted this show earlier this week and pumped the shit out of your tires. How do you feel about that?
Well, I was sent that a few times. Of course,
great.
With the social media, you can't hide from that. I appreciate it from Bruce's standpoint. I've met him only just once, I think last year when they were in. They had some ceremony with the Marlies when he was with Mike Kitchen and. They came in, but obviously know his name, and again, it's always good to hear, and that someone's always pumping your tires because you can't do it yourself. So I appreciate that from a coach to a coach. Again, let the chips fall where they may. I love coaching. Again, our focus is mainly for us to win a Calder Cup, but again, who knows?
Who knows? John, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate this. It's a lot of fun, and good luck here in the Calder Cup Final.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
There you have it. John Gruden, the head coach of the Toronto Marlies, ahead of Game 1 of the Calder Cup Final in Chicago for the first two. Then the next three after that, of course, if necessary games, but would be in Toronto with 6 and 7 happening in Chicago. And really blown away with my time there with John Gruden. And I love his answer to the Boudreau question as well. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It's essentially become Coach's Corner on Leafs Morning Take. We go from John Gruden now to the head coach of the Hamilton Hammers. It is Jay McKee. What's going on, Jay? How are you, bud?
How you doing, Nick? Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man. Thank you so much for doing this. I know it's been a whirlwind last couple of weeks. What led to the new job in Hamilton?
Well, I went through the interview process with them and some other teams, and I had the opportunity to make a decision. And tough decisions. I mean, there's a lot of good people I've met in this sport. Some good opportunities, and just the group. The Islanders group, very genuine group. Obviously, the move to Hamilton, I'm very familiar with that area. Coached there for a couple of years, and then our organization moved just 30 minutes up the road to Brantford. So I have a familiarity there with the arena and the situation, the setup. I'm kind of based north of Buffalo, about an hour and 10 minutes from there, where my family's kind of rooted. So there's a few things that played into it, but it's a great group, up and coming team. Had a taste of the playoffs last year. I think Rocky Thompson and his staff did a fantastic job, and that's something I want to build off of there.
And so you look back at your time in Brantford, how difficult was it to leave that franchise considering all the success you had there?
It was tough. I mean, the OHL is a fantastic developmental league for not just players, but coaches as well. And I've put over a decade now in the OHL. I wanted to stay close again to family, and that provided that opportunity. But, to go through a lot of different experiences, winning a championship, going through challenges, having to find solutions, was great for me as a coach. But the relationships made are really what I take with me. From Michael Andlauer, Steve Staios, Matt Turek, the Hyman group, from top to bottom, all those people were first class. The organization's incredible, and I had a lot of fun. I mean, loved every day. It didn't feel like work, and it's bittersweet. I had intended on moving on to pro at this time, and I'm grateful that some opportunities came about, and I was able to make the move.
A lot of coaches view the AHL as the final proving ground, if you will, before the NHL. Is coaching in the NHL ultimately the goal for you?
Yeah, I think, any coach coaching at this level now, for me, it's no different than when I was a player. As a player, you're competitive, you strive to reach the highest level possible. And, naturally, as former players or people who love the sport or have invested time in it, the goal is no different. I've grown a great appreciation for how much you learn every year as a coach, the process of it. Again, part of the reason I wanted to put a lot of time into it before making the jump to pro. But yeah, the goals are the same. I'll work as hard and as long as it takes to try to eventually one day make it to the top level.
What are you most looking forward to about coaching professionally full time here?
Well, I did coach in the AHL a little over a decade ago with Rochester, so it's different. Obviously, there's a lot more movement within the lineup when you have your injuries and the big club has theirs, and guys get called up. You're dealing with older players, some with families. And I think it's exciting to be part of an NHL organization and developing their future stars. At the same time, you want to find guys that maybe weren't the first or second round picks and help develop guys that were picked later or free agents and try and help these players achieve their ultimate goal of making the NHL.
I feel like at that level, Jay, you're throwing more curveballs. Like, for example, watching the Cup Final game last night, I think the number one for Chicago was called up to the show, right? Like, I just feel you have to be ready to adapt and be versatile as a coach in that league, because in any waking moment, an injury can happen in the National League, right?
Well, that's perfect. You sign up knowing that. And ultimately, what we're trying to do as head coaches in the AHL is help these kids develop, players develop, young men develop, and get their opportunity. And whether it's a scenario like you're seeing a player getting called up to the NHL, whether they're in the Calder Cup Final or not, you're signing up for that. And I think as a coach, you're still as much as it might hurt to lose a key player at that time, you're also watching a player walk out the door to live his dream. So, there's an understanding that there are some unique challenges and different situations that you'll have to go through. But at the same time, every team goes through it, so it balances out for the most part throughout the season.
Now, you've developed a strong reputation as someone who gets the most out of young players. How does your approach change when you're coaching pros versus junior players?
Well, I think it's similar. I mean, the game is the game. I think as a coach, most importantly is early on is building relationships. If you go in day one and you expect certain things when you haven't built relationships and built trust with your players, it's not going to work. So no different than junior. When you go to pro as a coach, you have to build those relationships. They have to know you care, and you genuinely have to care. And every season, it's neat. There comes a point in the season where you feel like a family. Everyone loves each other, and the sooner you get to that point, the better. When players trust you, that's part of the time that you can get the best out of them. You learn on which guys you can push certain buttons, which players need a little bit of a confidence builder. But the game is the game. The way you teach it, the structure, the motivation techniques or tactics will remain. But a huge part of it is building those relationships.
And one of those relationships you built for sure over the last couple months was with Ben Danford, who's now with the Toronto Marlies. And there's a good chance that you may coach again against him. We'll have that coming up. But you coached him for 50 games here in Brantford. What stood out about him, and are you surprised by how quickly he's adapted to the AHL here?
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, when you say Ben Danford, I get a smile. He's I'll start off with he's a character in the dressing room. I mean, you need personality types like him. He has that serious. He's got the game face. When the game's on, he's on. But in the room, he brings a looseness. He brings guys together. He's got a sense of humor. And seasons are long. You go through challenges. You need guys like that. So Ben Danford, I love as a human being. On the ice, just such a clean hockey player. I mean, he can bring a physicality when needed, can hit very hard, but he doesn't run around. He picks his spot. His spots, has good timing with it, but he's just moves well, has multiple head checks when retrieving pucks. He's incredible at retrievals and exiting the zone clean, has a great first pass. He can provide some offense, but he does understand that he's going to be, I see him as being a number one line shutdown guy. There's going to be a point where he's playing for the Maple Leafs and shutting down other teams' top lines and being hard to play against. So the Leafs got a good one in him, not only on the ice, but off the ice as well.
Is there someone maybe you played with or even in the league right now that he reminds you of at all? Like, I know naturally Chris Tanev's the person that comes to mind. I believe he idolized Tanev growing up, which I think is awesome. But is there somebody that stands out for you?
Yeah, I think Chris Tanev's a good example. I think Ben probably brings more physicality, but I think the Forsling in Florida there, where he's just so good defensively and strong and can clear the front of the net. Does a great job at breaking up 2-on-1s, not just seldomly but often. He's got real good timing on when to slide and break those up. Kind of reminds me of this old hack, Jay McKee, who used to play a defensive style physical game. No, he's a treat. Yeah, he's a dinosaur now. He's Leafs fans have a lot to be excited about in Ben Danford. He's a special person, a special player.
You thought about the idea that you might have to play this mutant next year? Like, obviously the hope is that maybe he makes the NHL team, but seasoning is part of the game with youngsters. You might have to play this guy now.
I think he may have an opportunity to make the team. He's that clean of a player, and if if the depth is a little bit too deep, and I do see him on the ice, I will certainly try and get him off his game with some smiles. We had a lot of laughs together. He was a treat to work alongside, and I envy what he has to look forward to. He's got a bright future ahead of him.
I was going to ask you, how close do you think he is to being in the NHL?
I think he's very close. Obviously, every season there's some change within some teams, so it's going to come down to the depth. I foresee him having a strong training camp. He's one of those players that, like I said, he plays a clean game, and every coach wants players that have that ability, whether they're offensive or defensive. Again, he will provide a little bit of support offense, but he's not a guy that's going to be breaking records offensively. But what he brings on the defensive side of the puck, such a stable, clean player. Again, his breakouts are clean. You spend less time in your zone with Ben Danford on the ice. So I think he's going to get a good look next year. Again, it'll come down to the depth. And, sometimes teams will want good young players like him to spend a little time in the minors and get his feet wet, and then maybe bring him up here and there. So we'll see how his camp goes and how the team looks when camp starts for the Leafs.
Meantime, here in Toronto, I don't know if you've heard, but there's a coaching search. Me and Bruce Boudreau were laughing on Monday, trying to pinpoint 55 different candidates that the Maple Leafs spoke to, supposedly. Were you one of them, Jay McKee?
I've spoken to John. I don't want to get into it too much further than that. They've got, obviously, it's a huge responsibility, the role they're looking to fill, and I think Leafs fans can have a lot of confidence that they're going to do their due diligence and find the right guy and the right makeup for the club they have right now.
Lastly, I'm curious to get your opinion as a former player. I think this has been a bigger theme and trend in this league. Like, you see Martin St. Louis right now and the success he's having with the Montreal Canadiens. Joe Pavelski has been linked to this Maple Leafs job. What do you make of guys just like sort of coming out of minor hockey? I know you've been a guy who's been doing your thing for a while here, but I think it's a different approach the Maple Leafs taken this time around.
I think Marty's done a great job, and they've had obviously patience with him. He started with a very young team and in a unique situation. When you talk about relationships, you see that how Marty works with guys, and I think his personality certainly connects with the team. They've got a young upcoming team. They're allowing him to grow as a coach with that team, and If Joe's a guy, then that's great as well. It's a unique way for teams to go. You don't see it very often. I think one of the when I first got into coaching on a personal level, I wanted to coach in the NHL tomorrow. I wanted to as a player, you have that desire to be at the top level as quick as you can get there. And I had that mindset when I first got into it. But I grew a deep appreciation for how much you do learn every year. And even now, over a decade later, you go through, I believe, to be confident as a coach, you have to go through, when you go through success, that's great. You can learn stuff from that, but you have to go through challenges too. When you do that, you learn how to find solutions. Then down the road, when you go through those challenges again, you can fall back on how you found those solutions, and you can kind of rectify the issues quicker. So, I think there's a lot of value in going through those experiences to take with you and learn from. But on the flip side, sometimes you can find lightning in a bottle like they did with Marty. He's done an exceptional job, and that could potentially happen again with somebody.
You can speak to this. Like, I think today's player has changed a lot from 20 years ago, clearly, but I think the adaptability is a big, talking point that maybe it's not spoken about enough. It's just being able to adapt to like the new age kid, if you will, right?
Well, I mean, just going back to when I played, when I came into the league, there's video was on a VHS, right? So it was a lot harder to cut. It was a lot harder to go through. There was no analytics, and very limited video sessions because of the challenges that it posed to just get the games on video and actually cut them. So today's generation is certainly different. I think coaching through intimidation was more in play when I started back in 96, 97. Over my time, I mean, I remember when they first put a couple computers into the lounge, and you would go sit and watch your shifts, and I thought that was an amazing thing. And now it's so much more advanced, and the amount of teaching that goes on now compared to back in the day. Again, it goes back to that relationships. You're spending a lot more one-on-one time with guys, team sessions. So the game has changed. The players have changed. The mindset. So, you look at guys like Lindy Ruff who have been doing it for years and years. They've had to change over the years. But it's certainly a very different game. A lot more teaching involved, a lot more connection, and a lot less. Obviously, coaches have to bring fire at certain times, but I think connecting with the players as opposed to teaching through or coaching through intimidation is certainly how you want to do it nowadays.
You don't have to say it, but I will. I love the new blood coming into the game. It just seems like a lot of retreads in this league, and people like you deserve that opportunity at that next level. So congratulations with this new role, and I would not be shocked if we see you in the NHL once again very, very soon. So appreciate your time today.
No, thanks, Nick. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time as well.
My pleasure. See you, bud. That is Jay McKee, the head coach of the Hamilton Hammers, and congratulations to him on the new job. I love the team name, by the way. And the one thing we didn't even tackle is maybe a new rivalry. I know Hamilton used to have a team back in the day, but the proximity close to this Marlies team, and I'm looking forward to those matchups in the AHL. So that was Jay McKee. Many thanks to John Gruden for dropping by as well. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. I know a couple super chats are in there. I'll get to those a bit later on. But I did want to touch on Joe Pavelski, and I was intrigued to ask that question, Jay McKee being a former player, but somebody who's been out of the game a bit longer than a couple years like Pavelski, just the craft and how others in this game feel about the Martin St. Louis of the world being plucked out of minor hockey, which I think it's a copycat league. We talk about this every year, folks. And if it's not the Leafs, somebody else is going to snatch somebody like Pavelski, who's coaching his kid and playing in celebrity golf tournaments, and being like, hey, you want to coach my NHL team? So I think it's a new can of worms. It's been opened. I think people look at the success MSL has had with the Montreal Canadiens, and I think it is here to stay. But Pavelski had a media availability for a celebrity golf tournament in Lake Tahoe, a tournament he actually won last year. Apparently this guy's a stick on the golf course. So that's an added storyline too, that if he coaches this Maple Leafs team at the golf tournament, he could be coming for some of the players' money. I know there's a bunch of guys on that team. They're actually really, really good golfers. So a couple of quotes that stood out for me regarding Pavelski. First one saying there is truth to that stuff. We've had discussions there. Obviously, their process, they're going through many options and stuff, but it's been very interesting and intriguing in a lot of ways. And I'm excited to go through the process and kind of see where it leads. I'm curious from a media standpoint how Joe Pavelski would be in Toronto, because I talked about this. San Jose and Dallas are not Toronto. Are you ready to answer the same 17 questions every day in the media is the big time question. I know this is always bandied about in this market, the media pressure. It's utter bullshit, okay? It's questions that need to be asked, no different than Johnny Lazarus asking John Tortorella last night about Aiden Hill, okay? And so I genuinely wonder, somebody like Joe Pavelski, who hasn't really, faced that heat, taking nothing away from the fine folks in Dallas and San Jose, but this is a different animal. And I felt the same way when they brought in John Chaika. Like, Matt Sundin has had that history in this market, even Vancouver, so he knows what that smoke's about. Going from Arizona, if you're Chaika, to Toronto is a different animal. And while everything's peachy clean right now and positive, things, there's going to be scrutiny along the way. And how will somebody like Joe Pavelski handle that is my question. It sounds like he's a front runner for this job. It also sounds like the Leafs are going to continue to take their sweet ass time here, which is understandable. It's fair. In fact, I'd wait until the Stanley Cup Final is over. Number one, I want to talk to John Gruden. Number two, I want to talk to Bruce Cassidy, or at least ask Vegas if I can talk to Bruce Cassidy. And maybe they think about it more because of what happened last year with Mitch Marner, the whole sign-in trade, and also the fact that the Leafs are in the Eastern Conference. Can't bother Vegas as much being in the Western Conference. The other Pavelski quote that caught my eye, we've had a couple of discussions. It's a process. They're being very thorough through it. They have a bunch of stuff on their end. You're just being patient and figuring out things on your end. So there's not a lot to talk about right now. So I think what has been a theme with the many candidates that have been involved, we joke about it, 55 different people supposedly spoken to by the Maple Leafs, is nobody's saying anything. And that includes Dallas Eakins, that includes Jay Woodcroft, Patrick Waugh. I know the passing of his friend, so he's been dealing with that, and Claude Lemieux. But I think at some point in time, there's going to be a resolution to this process. And would it still shock anybody if it was somebody that came out of nowhere, completely out of nowhere? I think there's been a randomness to this Leafs front office, to this Maple Leafs organization over the last couple months, 3 months since Brad Treliving left and moved on, of course, and the whole Pelly press conference. You don't know what to expect. And so I have no clue who the hell the next head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs is going to be, is what I'm telling you. I can confirm some of the names on that list, but would anybody be shocked if Joe Schmo randomly came out of nowhere? Like, we think we know 4 of the 5 or 6 that are left, but the last 2, for some reason, nobody can find them. So looking forward to a resolution to this process. Again, if I'm the Leafs, I continue to slow play this puppy, wait until after the Calder Cup Final, wait until after the Stanley Cup Final. Reading in between the lines, specifically on John Gruden, he would love to interview for this job, and I get it. And I think he was so blunt and precise and concise with his answer when I asked, do you think you're ready to take that next step? And I love that. I was really blown away by both interviews today, especially the John Gruden interview, because I know he wants that job badly. How could he not? But he's obviously focused on winning a Calder Cup, and no different than Manny Malhotra in Vancouver, by the way, won the Calder Cup with Abbotsford. And weirdly, a year later, he's the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. So if it's not with the Leafs and John Gruden goes on to win the Calder Cup here, I think he's going to get a look somewhere. At the very least, he's on my bench. I don't know what's going to happen with the likes of Steve Sullivan and Mike Van Ryn and Derek Lalonde, but you would think anybody new coming in would want a look and a fresh bench and a new bench. And I wouldn't be stunned either, and I have nothing to say on this, no confirmation on this front, but who's to say that, let's say there's 4 or 6, 4 or 5 or 6, I should say, candidates for this job. Maybe they intertwine and mesh some of these guys, and a couple of them come on in different coaching capacities. Now it would have to be if these guys were open to it, but I think they're going to be very, very creative with the way they operate their bench, especially if it's like a Joe Pavelski. I think you want some veterans in the mix too. So a lot of fascination when it comes to this Leafs head coaching job, but no resolution again for, it seems like, the 30th straight week. So that's the latest on that front. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Meantime, Darnell Nurse has asked for a trade out of Edmonton. And I think this is peculiar to begin with, because wasn't it a week ago that Edmonton pretty much said through the media that we want to move on from this guy? And it sounds like it has aligned with Darnell Nurse. And the reason why I bring it up, I think it's no different than maybe what will transpire here in Toronto with Morgan Rielly. I don't think, there's much difference in the scenarios. I think the only thing I would add on Darnell Nurse, he's got 4 years left at $9.5 million per season. I think it's much more doable if you're the Maple Leafs and Morgan Rielly, who has 4 years left at $7.5 million. But I don't view these situations any different than each other. I think these are two defensemen have had their glory days, have had their moments, that have been struggling recently, who are just in dire need of a change of scenery. Now, naturally, him being a Hamilton native, Nurse, you try to draw parallels to the Maple Leafs. They need guys who can skate. They need, every team wants tough defensemen, guys who play difficult. But I don't necessarily see Darnell Nurse as a fit. And I know we've had a lot of conversation, even on this program and this outlet, about a potential Rielly for Nurse swap. I just don't see it. When you look at Darnell Nurse and the supposed list that he's given to the Oilers, Dave Pagnotta suggests LA and Pittsburgh on that list. No shocker with Pittsburgh, by the way. The Sioux connection with Kyle Dubas. It would not make sense for Darnell Nurse to go to a Canadian team right now. It wouldn't. And I can't speak for the guy, but considering what he's been through the last 9 years in Edmonton, and I mean that, what he's been through, there's been a lot of pressure and turbulence and struggles and certainly more downs and ups. It's felt like, wouldn't you want to go to a quieter, quote unquote, market? I think if Nurse is going to be very smart the way he conducts business here, and granted, I understand that he makes 9.5 or 9.25 million bucks per season, around there. So he's got to be smarter with, the process and what he does. And maybe he's got to open up that list a bit more, but I don't know if Canada would be on my list. And that's more so because I think you got to get out of the heat, got to get out of the kitchen if you're Darnell Nurse. And this has been brewing for the last couple of years. The stories have been coming out for a lot. And so it sounds like he's given the Oilers a short list of teams. I see in the chat asking about his modified no move. It's a full no movement clause, to the best of my understanding, till July 1, 2027. So they're a year ahead of this thing. And again, he's 31. I think on paper he fits the bill for what the Maple Leafs are looking for, but I would steer clear if I'm the Maple Leafs. And conversely, if I'm Nurse, I probably don't want to go to Toronto. There's just a lot of smoke. You just dealt with a shit ton in Edmonton. I think it would be best for Darnell Nurse to maybe zone in somewhere stateside as opposed to Canada. That's just my opinion. And again, I just don't think that the Nurse conversation with Rielly makes a lot of sense. It's like your problem for my problem. Like, why would Edmonton want Morgan Rielly? They already have Evan Bouchard, and maybe it's somebody to complement their second power play that never plays, because McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman and those guys are always on the ice. I just think for both sides, that type of swap does not make sense. And especially for the Maple Leafs perspective, unless Edmonton's maybe coming at you and saying, we're going to retain a shit ton of money, and all of a sudden Darnell Nurse turns into a $5.5 million defenseman, which is unlikely. I don't think they're going to be that shrewd with that operation. So even let's say the contracts are matched between Rielly and Nurse, I probably still wouldn't do it. I just don't think at this juncture in his career for Darnell Nurse, especially the added pressure, he's a Hamilton guy, I just don't think it's a good fit. But no doubt, I think you'll see that thrown out in the media over the next couple weeks. Ultimately, do I see it happening? Probably not. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to a couple of super chats in support of Sick Kids We Go. JRock12, he leads off as per usual. Help Nick fly solo and Sick Kids ask questions. Appreciate that. JRock12 also writes in, what's Nick's top priority for the whole offseason? Good question. I've never really thought about that too in-depthly, because I think this team has so many holes to fill. I honestly probably moving Morgan Rielly. And I hate saying that, because Morgan Rielly has been one of my top people on the Maple Leafs for like a decade. Love the guy. And I know this is a lot more about the player on the ice, and he's really fallen off, and for what he makes, the juice is not worth the squeeze anymore for the organization. I just think now's the time. And they have to sort of put priority in making this move and just moving on from Morgan Rielly and making a decision to reallocate that money, reimagine their blue line, I think, is the greater answer to that question. But I think it starts with Morgan Rielly specifically. It's time. They've got to find somebody to take this guy. I'm very curious to see what that deal looks like. And we haven't seen any confirmation just yet, but would anybody be shocked if wording comes out similar to what we saw in Edmonton with Darnell Nurse? Maybe the Leafs leak it. Maybe Riley's camp leaks it. He'd be open to a change of scenery. I think it's only days before we see that. And I think Rielly is man enough. He's pro enough. I think the Leafs understand too that it's just time. It is time for the two sides to divorce and move on. And again, if the days are numbered for Morgan Rielly in Toronto, just did so many great things, such a great leader for this organization, a good face of this organization for a long period of time. So I don't want to discredit that aspect, that part of Morgan Rielly, because I think it's hard to find good people. And he's been a good person for this organization for a long period of time. I just think it's crystal clear watching his game that it's a lot to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think it would be in the best interest of both parties to move on. So we'll see if that happens over the next month and a half here. And lastly, ODog1967, appreciate this super chat. Go Marlies. That's a team with winning DNA. I concur with you. I'm going to try to head down to at least one of the Calder Cup Final games. I mentioned the schedule a bit in disarray, and much of it, by the way, is because of the World Cup that is taking place directly beside Coca-Cola Coliseum, where the Marlies call home. They're going to be playing game 3, 4, and 5 on home ice. I'm going to try my best to make at least one of those games, if not 2 or 3 of them, all the home games. But I'm looking forward to watching this run for the Marlies to see where they go and if they can grow. And guys like Easton Cowan, you heard there in the interview, Jacob Cullen hasn't played since the Rochester series. He could be on the men. And, according to John Gruden, we could see him very well in this series. Ben Danford's progression. Artur Aksyamov has been such an amazing story. I'm so curious with Toronto's crease, what they do. Is it Hildeby? Is it Stolars? Is it Wall? There's so many moving parts to this thing. And as I've been saying all week long, whether it was Pagnotta, Boudreau, Rosie in the mix as co-host, nobody today, obviously. What's the first move going to look like? Because I think a lot of us in this market, with the exception of getting lucky and getting the first overall pick, the hand has not been shown by Chaika and Sundin. There's been a lot of talking to the media, and this is what's going to happen, and this is what we're thinking, but they haven't done anything yet. And so that's why I'm really, really looking forward to like the first move and like how we feel about that first move. So exciting times in Toronto. I think a lot of positivity, which I think is great to say considering the season concluded just on a sour, poor note. And there was this belief that Boston was going to get the first round pick, which fucking sucked. And then just the way the season ended and everything just fell into the laps of the Maple Leafs. And it's amazing what one small thing seemingly can do. Not really small, but you get Gavin McKenna, your curiosity changed just a tad. You make the GM change. Craig Berube's gone. A new coach is coming in, and suddenly some optimism in this market. So looking forward to that over the next little while. It's time now for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Tired of waiting for the end of the game to get paid? Ready to move on to the next puck drop? That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, has 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey moves fast, and now with 3-goal early payout, there's one less thing you have to wait around for. Bet365, download the app and see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem, visit ConnexOntario.ca. And, of course, the Stanley Cup Final, an extra day off. And I fear for those like Dave Pagnotta who are in Vegas for multiple days yet again. I experienced it last weekend. Holy shit. It's a lot to handle. But looking ahead to Game 6 of the Cup Final on Sunday, Lord Stanley will be in the building. I don't think he's going up, though. I think we're headed to a Game 7. I actually am siding with John Tortorella. So give me the Vegas Golden Knights to win Game 6, force a Game 7 for all the marbles. And honestly, it's more of a selfish bet because I want to see more hockey and because I've been so impressed and intrigued and fascinated and fired up watching this Stanley Cup Final. I want more. I want it for all the marbles. I want it in Game 7. So give me the Vegas Golden Knights here in Game 6, albeit I've been completely wrong. For those of you who have been holding me accountable in the chat, started the series by saying Carolina, Carolina, Carolina. I've swayed my attention in the last couple games who I think Vegas is winning, and just I don't want to flip back. I really don't. So I'll stick with Vegas, I suppose. But There's just something about this Carolina team. And I said this before the series, when you've been knocking at that door for so many years and you finally barged through, would it make any sense narrative-wise if Carolina didn't finally push through and win a Stanley Cup? No for me, but I think Vegas is an excellent team. I think we're going to see a response on Sunday. And naturally, it comes down to everything we talk about every spring. Can you score goals? Probably. Can you get a save? That is the bigger story when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. And I think it would be hilarious, by the way, after all that with Laz and John Tortorella, if Aiden Hill starts game 6. Unlikely, because that's Torts' guy dating back to their days in Philadelphia. Carter Hart is. But man, that would be hilarious. And I hope Johnny Lazarus is there to ask that follow-up question, which I think would be tremendous. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button on the way out. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to check out theleafsnation.com. Lastly, I want to thank the Marlies organization for setting up the John Gruden interview. He was a lot of fun, as you guys listened to. Congrats. And good luck to Gruden and the Toronto Marlies here in the Calder Cup Final. Get set tonight. I believe all the games, and I know a couple of you guys brought it up in the chat, will be on Sportsnet, so looking forward to watching those games. I'm happy they're being televised, too. I thought it was ridiculous, and Flow Hockey does a great job of catching those games online, but like it's damn cool to see playoff hockey in the month of June in this market, and I'm happy that the Marlies are going to get that exposure in this market, so great to see. And number 2, congrats again to Jay McKee for getting that job in Hamilton and for guesting on this show today, and I'll be back on Monday. Different co-host. I'm actually going to have a co-host on Monday. We've got Matt Larkin from Daily Faceoff who's going to be co-hosting on Monday. Then on Tuesday, Carter Hutton, an old friend here of the program, is going to co-host this podcast. So we're flying right along. We're getting closer and closer to the draft. As mentioned, 2 weeks today, Gavin McKenna likely to become a Toronto Maple Leaf. Thank you to producer Vic. I'm Nick Alberga. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk on Monday. Take care, everybody. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.